Hi, my name is Karolina Sieler and I am a former law lecturer here in London, as well as the founder of a platform called firstclasslb.com, which helps law students just like you to get a first in their law essays and in their exams. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that is very important that a lot of students struggle with, which is how to read a case law report. Especially if you're in your first year, you're probably super overwhelmed with the amount of reading that you have to do in law school. And more often than not, your lecturer will actually tell you that you have to read all of the full case reports for all of the cases that you are going to be talking about in each topic. Now, this could range from anywhere from 10 cases up to sometimes even 20-30 cases per topic. And if you have 2 lectures per week, this could be up to 50 cases that you have to read, or even 60 that you have to read per week. My approach is a little bit different. So I usually don't encourage students to try to read all of the case reports that you need to talk about and you need to learn about for each topic, just because I really don't believe that it's physically viable for law students to be reading this amount of case reports, especially that some of those case reports are extremely lengthy. It's just not feasible. But the good news is that you can definitely pass through law school and get a first, even if you don't do that, even if you don't read every single case law, a report for every single case that you're meant to be learning about in your courses. Having said that, though, there are certain assignments for which you have to definitely be able to read a full case law report, just because the level of detail that the assignment requires means that you will not be able to find enough information about the case from other resources such as textbooks and journal articles. So in those cases, these situations are very good trainings for you to learn how to read a full case law report and how to really understand how to do it properly and how to do it quickly, because there is a way to do it quickly without too much hassle and without too much confusion. So there are a few steps I'm going to talk to you about of reading a full case law report that can help you to speed things up and help you to understand the report much better than if you just sat down and read it from the first to the last page. The first step that can help you smooth out the whole process and make it way easier is to start not by reading the case report itself, but by reading about the case in either a textbook or a revision guide. So textbooks are just those proper law books that you are asked to use for your courses, which include explanations of the topics, as well as some explanations of some of the more important cases. So the first thing you should do is you look for some information about that specific case in either a textbook or a revision guide. Revision guides are those short books that talk about just the basics of a specific topic for each different topics for each module. I also have prepared very simple and straightforward revision guides, or as I call them, revision notes, that you can use not only throughout your course but also to help you save a lot of time before exams during your revision. And you can check those out on my website, firstclasslb.com. I have a few revision guides for different topics. But when you start with this step, you really help yourself to understand what the case is about before really, and what it will involve, what will be the main issue that the parties will be talking about, before really cracking on with reading the full case law report, and that really helps to smooth things out. The next step is you start the reading process of the case law report by trying to understand the facts of the case really well. So what the information that you need to be looking for in the case law report is: who are the parties in the case? What are the names? Are they individuals? Are they companies? who are they? What do they do? Then you have to look at what actually happened. So how each of the parties is describing the situation as it happened. Then you will be looking at trying to identify who is the party who's suing, or who is the party who is being sued. And if we're dealing with criminal law, who is prosecuted and why are they being prosecuted? What did they do? What does the prosecution describe as the thing that they have done for which they are being prosecuted? So this information is usually at the beginning of the case law report. If you want to find out a bit more about how to identify this specific section in the case law report, as well as other sections such as judgments, make sure to check out my first class law exam revision course, which talks about this in more detail. The next step is identifying the arguments made by both parties. So we're dealing with a court situation where there's an argument between two parties. Either it's civil law and let's say you have a contract law dispute between two individuals, or it's a criminal law and you have the prosecution who is trying to prosecute on behalf of the state a person who is said to have committed a certain crime. Whether it's criminal law or whether it's civil law, you will always be dealing with two sides of the argument. So two parties will be arguing the opposite thing. So when we're dealing with criminal law, the prosecution is going to be arguing that the person committed a certain crime, and the defendant, the person who is being prosecuted, will be trying to argue that they didn't commit it. And there are certain arguments that they will be putting forward. And especially at the beginning, usually at the beginning of the case law report, they briefly explain both sides, what both sides are arguing. So you need to identify this specific section and try to learn more about what are the main arguments put forward by each party. The next step is to find a decision in the case. Now, this is usually at the end of the case law report. So it might seem a little bit counterintuitive to do it at this stage instead of reading through all the judgments first. The problem with this, or the problem with reading through all the judgments is if you try, so different judges will have different opposing opinions. And unless you know what the final decision in the case is, you will really struggle to kind of situate those judgments in relation to the decision. So first you should try to look for the decision and understand, okay, so if it's a criminal case, is the person guilty or not guilty of the crime? What was said in the decision? If it's a civil law dispute, for example, as a contract law dispute, which party won the dispute according to the judges, according to the court? What did the court say? Did they grant a specific order asked for by one party, or did they refuse to grant it? These are the things you need to be looking for at the end of the case law report. The final step is to skim through the judgments. And I'm saying skim through instead of read in full, because especially with some cases, the judgments can be very, very lengthy, and there can be a lot of them in a single case law report. If you try to read through them in detail, you're likely to confuse yourself, because you will be struggling to remember if you're reading the second judgment, what did the first judgment talk about and how are they related? The reason for this is there are a lot of very, very complicated words that the judges use, and you just tend to switch off very easily. That's the truth. Even for people who have done it for years, you tend to switch off very easily when you read through the entire sentences and the entire judgments. So for you, at the beginning of your journey with law, is the best thing to do is to just try to quickly read through the first judgment and then highlight any parts that are the most relevant or that make the most sense to you. How did the judge justify the specific decision they made in that specific case? And you can do that with every single judgment in the case, and then that allows you to then come back to those judgments and look through the pieces you've highlighted and find it easier to compare different judgments against each other, compare and contrast them. Because the thing is, usually when you're dealing with a coursework that requires you to talk about a specific judgment, you will be asked to comment on the judgments I'll rephrase this. If you have a coursework that asks you to talk about a specific case and read the full case report of that case, you will be required to compare and contrast the judgments given by the judges. So for that reason, you really need to have a good understanding of the entire case and the decision, and then at the end understand the judgments, but only the most important parts of it, so that you can discuss them in your essay. Now, that's it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you give the video a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my channel for more similar videos in the future. And make sure to check out my website, firstclasslb.com, and the courses and the revision notes that I have put up in there that will definitely help you to get a first in both your law essays and your exams.